Why would it make him lie and distort and use techniques, really wrong techniques to change the way his audience sees things in a way that's obviously provably false? Hey, it's Andrew Klavan. The Daily Wire asked if I would chime in on this latest attempt to murder former President Trump. And to be honest with you, I'm always a little bit reluctant to come in too quickly and talk about these things for the simple reason that I think that they are very profound and profoundly somber events, and I don't want to make them about me. I always want to know, do I have anything to contribute that's different than what everybody else is saying? Because everybody can and should come out and talk about the Secret Service, the fact that it's still being run by the guy who did the security in Butler, Pennsylvania, and that a man with an AK-47 should never have gotten anywhere near a golf course where President Trump was playing. Plenty of people have talked about the heated rhetoric of the left, which has reached absurd levels, of course, calling Trump Hitler and, a threat to democracy. And obviously that's going to get into the mind of unbalanced people and make them think that they're doing something helpful to the nation by trying to murder this important man. And then there are people who are going to talk about the motive of the killer, which is a conversation that I like possibly the least, because it's always an attempt to tag the other side with the responsibility for the killing. And almost always these people are crazy. Not always, but almost always these people are insane, and who cares about their motives? And so I wasn't really sure what I wanted to add to this. And then I saw something that has been commented on, but I think it's important and worth talking about a little bit, which is this it's a clip of Lester Holt. And it's not individual to him. It's not specific to him, because a lot of left-wing reporters, which is now all reporters, have been saying certain things like this. Here's a clip of Lester Holt reporting. He's the anchorman, obviously, of NBC Nightly News. Very important spot, very powerful spot. And his job is not my job. My job is to comment on things and to tell you my personal thoughts. His job is to report the news. That's what an anchorman does. And here he is reporting this attempt to murder, second attempt in 8 weeks to murder former President Donald Trump.
Today's apparent assassination attempt comes amid increasingly fierce rhetoric on the campaign trail itself. Mr. Trump, his running mate J.D. Vance continue to make baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Ohio.
Now, just on the surface of this, that's a despicable thing to say. I can't use a stronger word than that. I don't know how else to describe the fact that he is obviously attributing this attack to something that Trump has done, which is like saying a woman was attacked because she was dressed provocatively, or it's a man's fault for walking down a dark street that he got mugged. It's blaming Trump's rhetoric for this attack. Now, the reason it is so awful is because there's absolutely, the man who did the attack is the crazy man, the would-be assassin, is a left-winger, a strong, almost obsessive supporter of the war in Ukraine. He has said things that are sort of anti-Israeli. Obviously, he doesn't need Donald Trump's rhetoric to make him do this stuff. This was a path he was on, and there's no evidence, 0% evidence, that Donald Trump talking about Springfield, Ohio, or anything like that had anything to do with this. There's zero evidence of that. So for him to introduce that as even a possible motivation for this killer is it's not only disrespectful to the audience, because they come to him for information. They're not coming to him for his personal opinion. They're coming to him for information. He should just really report this story. So he's betraying his audience. He's betraying the principles of the profession that he's in. And it's also incredibly disdainful of the half, at least, of the electorate who believe that Donald Trump would make a better president than his opponent, which is the way our system works, right? People get together and they decide this, and it can't be that half of them are monsters and the other half are saints. We understand that people disagree. And so Lester Holt doing this is essentially spitting on these people. It's a very, very low thing to do. And I don't know, I know zero about Lester Holt and his personal life, but I don't think this is an evil man. I don't think this is a person who, sits around and thinks, how can I destroy the country, or how can I disrespect my audience? How can I betray my profession? How can I show my disdain for the half of the country that doesn't make the $10 million salary that he makes, that doesn't have the net worth or the respect or the position that he has, the untouchable position. And I started to think about this, what does that to people? Because really what I am as a novelist, I'm a guy who studies human nature and writes about the human experience from the inside. And it's not interesting to me why a crazy man would try to kill Donald Trump. He would do it because he's crazy, and probably on the sense that every rhetorical device that's said by every politician has some kind of honesty and truth to it. He may get overexcited. But Lester Holt isn't that guy. He's a sane person. And yet what he has done is truly low. It is truly low. And I think, here's the thing. We all know that ideologies can turn good people bad. They can make people think that they're doing a good thing when they're doing a bad thing. Alexander Solzhenitsyn said that ideologies can seem to transform the bad into the good. And so the only way we know when we have gone down an ideological rabbit hole that has made us think that bad things are good things is when we start to do things that are obviously ugly, when we start to lie, when we have to lie to protect our position, when we have to deceive people to protect our position, when we have to hate people to defend our position, when we have to kill people. I mean, that is the ultimate thing. When you start to commit murder, that's when that's one of the reasons I think, you can talk about all the reasons for abortion, why you have an abortion and why women get into the terrible situations they get into, but you can't have any excuse. There's no argument you can make that takes the humanity away from that child. So when you find yourself with the blood of children on your hands, you should stop and say, gee, this ideology has led me down a bad road. And so I look at Lester Holt and I think, why doesn't he change his mind when he looks in the mirror to shave in the morning and he says, I actually went on and disrespected my audience and violated the principles of journalism and showed disdain for half of my countrymen in a country that has given me so very much and brought me to the top of my profession. What is it about Trump himself that would cause a man, not like a crazy assassin, but a man like Lester Holt, a man, a high-ranking citizen in our country, a person of respect, a person of making tons of money doing what he does and getting all the respect in the world for doing why would it make him lie and distort and use techniques, really wrong techniques to change the way his audience sees things in a way that's obviously, provably false? And I have to think, whatever it is that would take a man like Holt, who has so much, and make him do something so low and so wrong and so despicable, it must be some part of what's playing into this moment in our society when one of our leaders can be attacked twice in 8 weeks. Someone tries to murder him twice in 8 weeks, and people aren't being fired, and security isn't being tightened, and rhetoric isn't being changed, and none of that is having any effect on anybody. It's as if this life doesn't matter, this important life, this life that has moved and inspired so many people to go to the voting booth and vote for him. Why does that not matter to people like Lester Holt and all his compares in the journalism business, the guys at ABC who disgraced themselves in that debate recently by fact-checking Donald Trump wrongly and never fact-checking the obvious lies of Kamala Harris? What is it about him? And whenever you ask people about this, the first thing that comes up is January 6th. And listen, I've been really honest about that. I don't think January 6th was a good thing. I don't buy into all the excuses and the FBI set it up and all this stuff. We're all responsible for ourselves. And I think that the people there did the wrong thing. And I think Trump didn't do the right thing quickly enough. So I think that they have a good shot that that's a bad thing that he did. But of course, it's nowhere near as bad as the George Floyd riots, which caused so much more damage and intimidated so many people and destroyed the businesses of ordinary people, while rich people like Nicole Hannah-Jones from the New York Times, a wealthy woman, a privileged woman, an elite woman, went on TV and said, well, despite the 19 or 20 people who were killed during those riots, she said, well, it's not really violence because it's just property, as if the lives and dreams and businesses and ownership of people who are not as rich as she is didn't matter. I mean, what twists people to this degree? And why has Donald Trump sent it into this kind of high level of distortion where people's ideologies now are making ordinary people do really despicable things like Lester Holt did in that newscast? They have developed a system to hide this both from us and from themselves. And that system, I call it the ratchet. It works like this. They tell you, we're not going to do the thing we're going to do. Then they do it. And then they say that if you don't like it, you're evil. If you don't like welfare programs that have destroyed the black family, you're a racist. If you don't like busing, Kamala Harris said this to Joe Biden, busing, which was a terrible, terrible idea and very destructive, and even the people who were bused didn't like it, then you're a racist. That's what Kamala Harris said to Joe Biden. That's how she humiliated him into appointing her the vice presidency. So this ratchet of silence, and if you speak against them, it's hate speech. You have to be taken off social media. You have to be banned on YouTube. Whenever you protest against what they're doing, which helps them, but doesn't help the 80% of the country that aren't as rich as Lester Holt and the rest of the elites, those programs help them. Decadence helps them. It's always good for the elites when things are decadent because they can do whatever they want. But for other people to not have solid marriages, to not have solid homes, is bad. It's bad, right? So in order to preserve something that's good for the elites, but not for the rest of us, they have to create this ratchet of rhetoric where anybody who speaks against them has to be banned, has to be silenced, has to be condemned, has to be demonized. And Donald Trump does not give a rat's ass. It's the fact that he won't be silenced. It's the fact that he won't be surrendered. They can hate him. They can demonize him. They can impeach him. They can indict him. They can shoot at him, and he will not be silenced. And the least we can do at this point for Donald Trump, for the courage that he's shown and the indomitable courage that he's shown, is we have to be a little like that too. We have to be. We have to speak up too. We have to be able to say, yeah, you're calling me into HR, but HR is wrong. You're telling me I'm not for DEI. I'm not for DEI. You're telling me I'm not for illegal immigration. I'm not a bigot. I'm just saying it's wrong. We're not going to silence people. I'd love it if the people at YouTube would take that on board. I'd love it if the people at Facebook would take that on board and say, you know what? We're going to let people speak. We're just going to let them argue it out themselves. We're not going to be the police here. We're not going to silence people. But if that doesn't happen, and if we lose our social media presence, and if we get kicked off places, and even if we get called into HR, I think we owe it to this guy now. If he's going to take bullets, if he's going to have bullets flying by, I think we owe it to him to just fearlessly speak the truth until finally we break through the Lester Holts and all their deceptions and all their disdain and all their disrespect and all their selling of their principles and all their hysteria about the fact that they've been exposed for who they are, not who Donald Trump is. Donald Trump is exposed to who they are. I think we have to take up that work ourselves and do it with Donald Trump until we put him back in the White House, where obviously he belongs. For more great content, like and subscribe. And you also want to subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you get your podcasts.